Okay, we're recording. All right, so 302. You need to be on 302 of your reading on the empire and the people. Go to page 302. And we're just going to go over some examples of what your notes should look like. Now, when you're taking notes on this, remember, the two most important nations to take notes on are going to be Cuba and the Philippines. You need to have notes on there. I'm changing this a little bit, and I want you to focus on this for your paper, because this is going to become a 5 to 6 paragraph paper when we're all done. Now, Cuba and the Philippines are going to be required paragraphs in your paper. Another country to write about is actually going to be an option. Does that make sense? So like China, for example, that'll be like a 3.5 option. So if you're running out of time in your notes, what you might want to do is just skip to the parts that are about Cuba and the Philippines to make sure you get to 3.0. Does that make sense? Those are the most important things. Also, as you're reading, if you come on, like, let's say a whole page and it's talking about labor unions and the socialists and all these things, which you probably read part of that already. If you're reading those, are those the things we're taking notes on?
No.
No. So you can kind of read it. It's good information to know. But do you need to take notes on it?
No.
So just read through that part. Does that make sense? And then focus more on when it gets to American imperialism in these countries. That's the real focus of your paper. And we're doing that because when you get a college text, a lot of times you'll go 1, 2, 3, 4 pages maybe even, and not need to take notes. That's a pain sometimes, but that is the way that it works. You have to focus on what's important here. So Cuba, Philippines, highest priority. Then another country, if you want to add like China, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, you can do that. Now, in 302, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read part of this out loud, and then I'm going to show you how I would take notes. And I'm also going to call on some of you that you can take your notes. And those of you who have computers, what I'll do too is we'll plug in your computer, and we will take a look at the notes you have. Does that make sense? Like literally some of you take notes on your computer, we can just plug her in. Won't work with Macs, but the other ones we can. 302, starting at however. However, this preference on the part of some business groups and politicians for what Williams calls the idea of informal empire without war was always subject to change. If peaceful imperialism turned out to be impossible, military action might be needed. For instance, in late 1897 and early 1898, with China weakened by recent war with Japan, Germany military forces occupied the Chinese port of Tsingtao at the mouth of the Kiaochao Bay and demanded a naval station there, with rights to railways and coal mines in the nearby peninsula of Shantung. Within the next few months, other European powers moved in on China, and the partition of China by the major imperialist powers was underway, with the United States left behind. Good information to have. We know that China was kind of weak because they fought with Japan. What were the European powers thinking of doing?
Taking over China.
Taking over China. A lot like they did to Africa. Does that make sense? So similar to what had been done to Africa. Now, I'm not going to put notes for China right here. We might write a little bit of notes on that. We want to keep reading though, and we want to see how does America become involved. Does that make sense? Our big focus of this paper is how does America then become involved in this. All right, at this point, the New York Journal of Commerce, in italics, means it's like a newspaper or like a journal, like an academic writing of this time, which had always advocated peaceful development of free trade, now urged old-fashioned military colonialism. Julius Pratt, a historian of U.S. expansionism, describes the turnabout. This paper, which had been therefore characterized as pacifist, anti-imperialist, and devoted to the development of commerce in a free trade world, saw the foundation of its faith crumbling as a result of the threatened partition of China. Declaring that free access of the markets of China with its 400 million people would largely solve the problem of the disposal of our surplus manufactures, the journal came out not only for a stern insistence upon complete equality of rights in China, but unreservedly also for the Isthmian Canal and the acquisition of Hawaii, and a military increase in the Navy. 3 measures which that Heartho strenuously opposed. Nothing could be more significant than the manner in which this paper was converted in a few weeks. There's a whole lot there, isn't there? A lot of stuff that you're probably thinking, what's this guy writing about? I don't get it. Let's go back to China. How are China and America linked here? What is the connection that America might want in China? Think about economic reasons, either taking resources or selling products to them. There's a big number mentioned in there too, that pops out to me. What do you think? Go ahead.
That they want free access to their markets.
They wanted free access to their markets. Good. Why would America want access to China's markets?
Because they have a lot of workers, so that means they have like a lot of different things, and like they have a lot, like kind of like surplus.
Surplus. Good. Workers, not so much, but surplus. What does America want to do with its surplus? Surplus what?
Surplus goods.
So America wants to do what?
Like sell it.
Sell surplus goods to who?
China.
The 400 million people in China. So if I'm taking notes on this, I got to get some notes down my paper now. I don't want to write a whole ton. I might just put that China was kind of weak at this point. China weak, war. And then I might want to put something about Europe was kind of taking over parts of China. America wants to sell what?
Surplus.
Surplus goods to China. And then I might even just add and I always, I use text language when I take notes. I'm fine with it on your notes. So I might put something like that. So China was weak because of war. Europe was taking over parts of China. America wanted to sell surplus goods to 400 million people in China. Now I'm going to have to write a paper about this, and you're going to need in-text citations. So what do I put right after that? I need an in-text citation. So
Can
what
you
do I?
put the New York Journal of Commerce?
Oh, I could put New York Journal of Commerce in there. Yeah, I could put according to New York Journal of Commerce. Definitely I could put that in. If you want to put that in your notes, go ahead. What do I have to have for an in-text citation?
Page number?
Page number. Put the page number down. So somewhere in here, just put and it would be, you can put Zinn if you want, but we're only doing a one-source paper. Let's just do that just for practice sake. Zinn 302. And that's what your in-text citation is going to look like when you get to your paper. Zinn 302. Does that make sense? Again, this is going to be like a one-source research paper next about a month and a half from now. When you're working on your research paper with me and Ms. McCartney, it'll be multiple sources. Does that make sense? Think of this again, single-source research paper. Some of you might use more sources online if you want to go for that 4.0 option. Now, what are the economic factors behind this? Do they want resources, or do they want to sell goods? Which one is it? It's pretty clear. What do they want from China? Do they want resources?
And they want money.
Yeah, so my economic factors behind the imperialism would be selling goods to China's people. Does that make sense? So they want to sell goods to China's people. That's the economic reasons. So now if you write a paragraph about this and China comes up, you might start your sentence saying, America wanted to be involved in China so they could sell their surplus goods to China's people. And you got a little bit of evidence here. Hopefully you find more in your book as you go on. Does this kind of make it a little easier how you're supposed to take notes? I hope it makes it easier. It's not going to be an easy read. Zinn's not easy to read.
So, where it says economy, we put how it helps America's economy?
Yes, what are the economic factors? Basically, what does America want out of this? Does that make sense? Economic factors means, the economic factors behind American imperialism means that what does America really want with China? Now, there are lots of good other things that go on in China. There are missions that go in China. There are people who want to help China. But there's also a lot of business leaders who want to make money. And they want to sell surplus goods. All right, so now we're going to read the next part. The next part talks about Cuba. Again, when Cuba and the Philippines come up, they're really important. Those are the two most important parts. I'll just keep reading. We'll do another about half a page of this, then I'll let you guys go on your own and take notes on your own. All right, so continuing bottom page 302 where it says, there was a similar. There was a similar turnaround in U.S. business attitudes on Cuba in 1898. Businessmen had been interested from the start on the Cuban revolt against Spain and an effect on the commercial possibilities there. There already was a substantial economic interest in the island, which President Grover Cleveland summarized in 1896. It is reasonably estimated that at least from 30 million to 50 million of American capital are invested in plantations and in railroad, mining, and other business enterprises on the island. The volume of trade between the United States and Cuba, which in 1889 amounted to 64 million, rose in 1893 to about 103 million. Okay, now what I want you to do is look through that quote. That's actually, who are they quoting? Who's Zinn quoting there? Go back, look at it, right before.
President Grover Cleveland.
Yeah, President Grover Cleveland. Is that a pretty good quote?
Yeah.
Yes. So, go to that quote now, and what do we really want to take notes on from that? What's really important that we want to put here, details about American imperialism from here?
America's capital are invested in plantations and railroad mining and other businesses.
So repeat that again, Ashley.
America's capital are invested in the plantations and in the railroads, mining, other businesses, enterprises on the island.
See if I spell that right. I'll fix that later. Plantations, mining, railroads. Did I miss one?
You said mining.
I get that.
And other business enterprises.
Okay, other business enterprises. Okay. Enterprises, not enterprises. Okay. All right, so basically there we got our notes. American capital is invested in plantations, mining, railroads, other business enterprises. So, is Cuba a little bit different than China? Already you can see from here?
Yeah.
What's the interest in Cuba?
Plantation.
They want plantations, resources. The major economic is resources. At this time, America's very interested in Cuba's resources. Now, are numbers a good thing to have in a paper?
Yeah.
You have a whole bunch of numbers you can put in there. 30 million to 50 million they talk about. Also, when does America actually get interested in Cuba?
When they find out that they have all the plantations.
Really? Oh, yeah, but they also get interested when Cuba starts doing what?
When Cuba starts their
American interest begins. So, American interest begins with the revolt against Spain. And remember, we just talked about this? This ties back to our yellow journalism at that time, when there was the exaggerated reports of what Spain was doing to the people of Cuba. What Spain was doing was bad, no doubt about it. But there were the exaggerated reports from Hertz and Pulitzer. See how this ties together now?
Yeah.
And a lot of the businesses want to get in, they want to take Cuba's resources. Here's what you should do right now. Before you begin, let's put some numbers in here. Put at least one or two of those numbers in there. Look at them. What would actually be good to have in your paper that you could put in there? And put that down. And Becca, if you could stop recording, I think we're good. So, hope you enjoyed that part if you're watching at home.